In what's often considered a surprising statistic, most women seeking abortions are already mothers. According to the Guttmacher Institute, a research group originally part of Planned Parenthood, 59% of abortions are obtained by women with children. What is it driving mothers to get an abortion? We turn to an expert to discuss this and more. Gary Bauer served in the Reagan administration, including as chairman of President Ronald Reagan's Special Working Group on the Family. He now serves as president of American Values. Gary, thank you so much for being here.
Great to be with you.
So what do you think is behind this trend? Why is it that mothers are seeking abortions?
You know, it's a shocking trend, and I don't have an easy answer for it. All I know is that God made us with certain impulses, and women, mothers, are made to instinctively want to protect their children. And the fact that something is happening in our society or in the hearts of people that even mothers with children might be, for whatever their rationale is, destroying an additional innocent human life that they're in the process of bringing into the world is depressing. And as a culture, it ought to make us do some serious thinking about the messages we're sending.
If you look at the past few decades, there's been the introduction of the birth control pill, no-fault divorce. How has that changed the dynamics and breakdown of the family, and has that contributed to these abortion trends?
Well, I think one of the things that all these issues have done is separate sex from procreating and having children. And that's had obviously a big impact. My grandmother, my mother's mother, had 13 sons and daughters, and that was not that unusual in that era. It's almost unimaginable now. I mean, if you have 4 or 5 kids, you'll get stares, particularly in some of America's big cities, like, what's wrong with her, you know?
Right.
So I think it's really sad that we're particularly teaching young women that the greatest display of their femininity and of who they are and of their strength is not to bring another life into the world and nurture that life and raise that young little boy or little girl with the right values, but to destroy innocent human life. It's a sad thing. We have 2 daughters and 3 granddaughters, and the thought that any of them would ever be taught by our culture that destroying innocent life was somehow what you had to be willing to do to be a complete woman is something that I find just horrid.
Right. What a unique gift that women have, that we have the ability to bring life into the world. There was another stunning statistic the Guttmacher Institute has put out. 60% of women getting abortions are women in their 20s. I'm a woman in my 20s. So what is it facing my generation that we had in the family that is also leading to abortion?
Again, these are very difficult things to come up with definitive answers to. I suspect, however, that as feminism, as an ideology, quickens, that it sends this message, particularly to young women, that everything is possible. Well, that's wonderful. In a country like this, everything is possible. You can be a doctor or a lawyer. You can be a member of the military. You can discover new inventions and so forth. But I think increasingly we send a message to those young women, or you can just be a mother.
Right.
And, you know, and no cultures can survive without having a new invention every couple of months, but a culture that doesn't value motherhood and fatherhood as one of the most noble, perhaps the most noble thing a man or woman can do in their lives is a culture that ultimately will be in deep, deep trouble.
It's a culture that couldn't last. Nearly half of women who get abortions live below the federal poverty level. How can pro-lifers reach these families? What more can we do?
Well, you know, crisis pregnancy centers, of course, try to fill at least part of this role by providing food and clothes and toys and cribs and so forth for those women that choose life. You know, that's something that we probably ought to look to more. Some argue that because there seems to be this relationship between poverty and abortion, that perhaps we ought to increase poverty programs. The problem with that is, over the last 4 or 5 decades, poverty programs, checks from Washington, have tended to replace low-income and unskilled men. And so if If a woman is having difficulty with the man in her life or the father of her children, and she knows she can get a check in the mail without him providing for her, or if the man decides, I don't need to meet my responsibilities, the government will take care of her and that child, it might actually encourage the kind of family breakup that we see in so many communities.
Finally, I want to speak to you about someone that you know well, Charmaine Yost, recently tapped to the HHS department. What can you tell us about Charmaine and what this appointment signals from the Trump administration?
Well, Charmaine and I have worked together all the way back to the Family Research Council when I was the first president of the organization, and I got to know her very well. She's strongly pro-life and pro-family, and it's a really great sign for people out around America that still may be trying to make up their minds about the Trump-Pence administration, that when you see President Trump initially picking somebody like Vice President Pence, and now in key positions at HHS and in other government agencies picking somebody like Charmaine, it's a real sign that this administration is serious about supporting American families and promoting the sanctity of life.
Gary Bauer, thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you.